Megan, are we streaming live now or is it just getting set up? We are? Okay.
Oh, it's 10 o'clock. Is everybody here that's coming, you know?
Let me double check. Megan, do you know, or I think we're missing Commissioner Covey.
Is Chief Justice Raddick here?
Oh, and Chief Justice Raddick's not here yet.
Hi guys, it's Missy. I just joined in, just got done with the hearing. Had to speed everybody up.
Hey, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Yeah, my coordinator and I had our synopses that we were not in sync. So he had like 4 2-hour final hearings and a bunch of criminal cases. And I was like, Andy, I have TIDC at 10. He's like, uh-oh. But they settled one of the family law cases. So I'm going to put that up to TIDC. There's Justice Raddick. She's coming in now.
I was on the wrong meeting. Sorry.
Hello, Justice Raddick.
You guys kind of look familiar. I think I just saw you.
Everybody's here. Judge?
Morning, Chief.
Hi, I don't know if it's you're talking to me.
Oh.
Everybody's a chief or a judge. How are you doing?
Good. It's good to see you, Chief Justice Raddick and Chief Heck. Good to see you all. Thanks for being here.
Okay,
Yep.
the real chief. Good morning.
Good
Right.
morning. Good morning.
The big chief. Hi, Chief.
Hello, hello.
You can just call me Judge, then we won't have any confusion.
We'll use proper names to keep it all.
Yeah.
Judge Keller, I believe the only person we're missing who we expected is Commissioner Covey, but I do believe we have a quorum and she may be running a little bit late because of the things that have popped up in Georgetown.
Let's go ahead and get started. Is Megan going to do the roll call?
Yes, absolutely. Good morning. The Honorable Sharon Keller. Mr. Alex Blennon.
Here.
The Honorable Valerie Covey. The Honorable Brandon Creighton. The Honorable Richard Evans.
Here.
Mr. Gonzalo Rios. The Honorable Nathan Heck.
Here.
The Honorable Missy Maderi.
Here.
The Honorable Nicole Collier. The Honorable Reggie Smith. The Honorable Sherry Raddick.
Here.
The Honorable Vivian Torres. Here. The Honorable John Whitmire.
Great.
Thank you.
Call me. Thanks, sir.
Judge, we have quorum.
And Megan, noticed that Mr. Rios just joined.
Okay, I will mark him in.
Thank you, Megan. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 4th, 2020?
I'll make that motion, Judge Keller.
Second.
Any discussion? The motion carries. Next on the agenda is my report. Jeff, you can remind me, but I don't think there was anything that I needed to report on. Is that right?
I think that's right, Judge.
Well, let's go on to you for the director's report, please.
All right, thank you, Judge. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you here. Thanks for making time for the TIDC quarterly board meeting. We've got a big agenda today. Briefly, in my director's report, good news on the budget. You may recall that most state agencies were asked to cut 5% from their budget in 2020, and TIDC did just that. We cut essentially $4.5 million from the budget, which brought it from 94.4 down to 89.9 million. We asked for restoration of that 5% as part of our legislative appropriation request. And the legislature agreed with that. They appropriated not only that $4.5 million, but an additional $500,000. So for a total of $5 million. So that brings us up to $95 million for the biennium for FY 22-23. So that puts us in good shape. Again, we are a small sliver of indigent defense funding in Texas, relatively, but it was a very good ledge session in the sense that we received exactly what we asked for and a little bit more than that. Quick note on staff, we have 2 interns joining us today. We have Kenna Titus and Zach Kump, and both of them are rising 2Ls at UT Law, who are going to be interning with TIDC this summer. So I want to introduce you to Zach and Kenna. We're very happy to have them here this summer. Moving on to the bills. So there were 10 different bills that were filed. It was a really rough session for passing bills in Texas. We did have one that passed, and that was HB 295, which was filed by Representative Andy Murr and sponsored by Senator Zaffarini in the Senate. And essentially what that does is allow TIDC to fund nonprofits that provide public defense services to Texas counties. So that passed. There are a few other related bills. I won't go into any details, but all of that's in the written portion of that. And then the last part of my director's report, this actually will require a motion if the board's inclined. I mentioned at one of our last, and Megan, actually, you can shrink the screen share for this part. I mentioned at one of our last meetings that we have had the same data website for about 20 years. And the back end is now, I think it was actually 19 years old. And I'm very hard pressed to think of another website that's 19 years old at this point. In addition to that, the website has gotten to a point where it's not very user friendly. And the person who's been maintaining it is going to be retiring from Texas A&M's Public Policy Research Institute. Bless you, Judge Keller. And so as a result of that, we started to talk to private vendors to see if there was another company or group that could provide data services for us. Why this is so important to TIDC, that data website is really central to most everything that we do. That's where we run our improvement grants, our formula grants, our policy monitoring, our indigent defense expenditure reports, our indigent defense plans, our public-facing data website, all run through that website. So it's pretty critical. After we spoke to about a half dozen different vendors, we realized that going with a private vendor would be very expensive. And we went back to Texas A&M's Public Policy Research Institute and asked them if they would be willing to hire somebody new after their person retires and help relaunch the website, rebuild the website into something that's a little bit more user-friendly. The project is going to take some time, but we think that the result will be pretty darn good. And again, this is pretty central to everything TIDC does. So I believe there's a motion. Wesley, do you know what, just on the motion sheet?
There is. It's motion to approve this proposal on pages 7 and 8 from PPRI.
Yeah. And the last thing I'd add would be that normally we'd bring this to you in August. We're bringing this now in June because we want to make sure that before the PPRI person retires, they bring somebody new on board and they can get trained up. So we're hoping to get this off the ground, get somebody hired this summer. So I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
I do have one question. Well, what's the fiscal impact to our agency? Do we have it budgeted, or is it within the budget, or?
Yeah, very much within the budget. And again, it's a lot cheaper than a private group would be. So traditionally for the entire website and upkeep and everything that goes along with indigent defense plans, indigent defense expenditure reports, processing complaints and everything else, historically PPRI has charged about $100,000 a year for all that. This would roughly double that. So it got up to about $200,000 a year. But that includes rebuilding the entire website. What we were looking at from many of the private vendors on the low end was about $600,000, on the high end over $1 million. So this was a much more attractive option.
But we have that in the budget already.
Yeah, we're in good shape. We have the funds to be able to. Edwin, I don't know if you want to talk to that at all.
I can. I will be able to show you how we've accounted for that in the budget, but it's definitely accounted for. And I just add one quick caveat to what, or addition to what Jeff said, that, you know, while it is our data website, it is really our entire data and analysis and reporting and grant management system. So it's really more than a website. It's our entire data infrastructure. But yes, we'll get to, in just a few moments, we'll look at the budget pages and we can show you where it's reflected.
So we're just going to do line item transfers to move money around?
Well, we'll be presenting the budget for FY22 where this would take effect, and we have a budget for you to look at for discussion purposes today. Typically in August is when we would actually adopt the final budget for next year.
Thanks.
This includes payments to the counties, right?
I'm sorry, Judge, can you say again?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Wait a minute. Got something. This includes payments to the counties. That's also something done through the website. Is that right?
Yeah, this is the site that we use for processing formula grants, improvement grants, Innocence Project payments, all of that. That's correct.
And it also is our plan management website. So all the counties submit their indigent defense plans to us, in addition to their expenditure reports, all that auditor data. So it's it's all done via the web, but it's our entire data infrastructure.
Okay, is there a motion to approve PPRI proposals
So
for
moved.
FY20? Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, Jeff, for all your work on that. I know it was very involved.
It's been a long time coming, but we're happy that it's here. Thank you, Judge. And that concludes my report.
So I think next up, are we going to skip the improvement grant report, Jeff?
Yeah, Judge, if it's okay with you, since we have, I think Commissioner Covey will be here for just a limited amount of time. We thought we might skip the improvement grant report or the improvement team report and talk about that a little bit later.
Yes, good idea. Okay, let's go on to grants and reporting then. Judge Maderi?
Yeah, thank you, Judge Keller. Edwin, you want to talk about this? We've gone over these in our last meeting in the, but if you can start us off, Edwin, that would be great.
Sure, thank you, Judge. If you take a look at page 11, we'll start out with those budget sheets that I was just referencing to give you a kind of financial update on our situation with revenue and also our budget to actuals. So on page 11, we have the revenue analysis that shows the status of the Fair Defense account in the history of the last few years of receipts to the Fair Defense account. And obviously, we've been seeing major impacts from COVID in terms of its impact on court cost collections. So if you look at the box that's in the middle, the September through May analysis for the past 3 years, you can see that court cost receipts so far this fiscal year are just under 20 million. But if you go back to the last normal year we had, which was FY19, we were at this point in the year about 25.8 million. So we're still seeing the impact of COVID on court cost collections. Because the way that the court costs come into us, there is a serious lag time. So we're still seeing some of the impacts that, even though things are starting to recover in the economy and in the courts and collections, there's a kind of a lag time before we start to fully see that recovery because of the timeline for the counties to collect and then transmit those funds to the state. So this is all, we've been anticipating this. The good news is that there's a kind of highlighted box right below the big chart there that says cash available from 19 and 20, over $24 million. So we had a pile of unappropriated funds in the Fair Defense account that is able to absorb that shortfall in our short-term collections. So there's no major change in our scenario from our recent reports. We are starting to see recovery in court cost collections, and we anticipate that to improve. And we do have plenty of, I hesitate to call them surplus funds, but funds in the Fair Defense account to make up for that temporary dip in collections. Megan, if there are any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them. The next sheet is our budget to actuals for the current fiscal year budget. And I just want to highlight a few things here. Of course, we've started making payments on formula and improvement grants. The one thing that I want to point out here is under the budget, we have budgeted funds under the category improvement grants, future year obligations. You see it kind of right in the middle of the page there. There's about $5.9 million that we had budgeted because we knew that the way that our continuing obligations for existing grants were shaping up, and because of a lot of the budget uncertainty with COVID and what the legislature was going to do in response to that budget uncertainty, we wanted to make sure that we kept some funds in reserve to be able to be in good shape to meet our continuing obligations in the next biennium. And so that's why that budgeted item is there. So I just want to note that, because that informs our overall budget situation for the ability to approve any new grants. The other thing I want to note here is that if you look in our current budget, and this goes to Judge Evans' point about the PPRI contract that you all just considered, there's a line item toward the bottom of the page here that says PPRI contract database. And we had been spending, or budgeting rather, about $100,754 per year for their management and upkeep of that entire data infrastructure for us. So as you will see when I get to the page in just a moment, we've accounted for the increase in that cost in order to rebuild and restructure and really kind of modernize our data infrastructure. So currently we're budgeting just about $100,000 per year, and we'll show you what the impact of that is for next year based on our projections. Okay, so if you can go to the next page, Megan. So this puts us to page 13 in your meeting book. And this is just an analysis of our previous budget years. One of the things that I just mentioned is that we've been planning on some planning around some uncertainties regarding the budget because of COVID. So Megan, if you could scoot down just a little bit here. There you go. So if you look at the bottom of this page, you see that we have about 7.27 million in unobligated funds in our FY20 appropriation. And that was precisely because we wanted to make sure that we were in a position to fund our continuing grant obligations in the next biennium if the COVID situation deteriorated or whatever. So we were trying to be very conservative and not overextend ourselves. So those funds, part of those funds have already been carried forward to the current fiscal year and are reflected in that sheet we just looked at. So we have been kind of preparing for uncertainty, and I think things have shaken out to be not as bad as we had feared when COVID first hit, and we're in quite sound financial shape moving forward. Megan, at this time, could you put up the supplemental sheet that I distributed? So what I've prepared for you here, just to give you the context for where we stand, we see the FY20 budget, our projections for the final FY20 budget once all obligations are paid out. And if you look at that projected final budget for FY20, you see that we actually are anticipating about 8.9 or just shy of $9 million unobligated that are available to meet our future year obligations. So you see that $8.9 million figure that's highlighted in green for FY20 is carried forward to FY21 as an intra-biennial carry forward. We have unexpended balance authority within the biennium. So we've added that to our reduced appropriation for FY21. And we've continued to budget. You'll see the number highlighted in green for future year obligation improvement grants, 8.127 million. Again, for the same purpose of making sure that we're able to meet our future year obligations. So we anticipate ending FY21 with about $8 million available to put toward grants that we approve moving forward. And so you see in the FY22 projected budget, which is just a budget we've put together for discussion purposes, we will be presenting the actual FY22 budget in more detail for you in August. But there are a few things I would highlight here. First of all, the $8 million is available, you see at the top, for us to fund grants moving forward from the additional funds that we've reserved in the current biennium. The numbers highlighted in blue reflect the grant recommendations of the Grants and Reporting Committee that met last week. So those are new and continuing grant awards. And you will see that taking into account those spending assumptions, which are quite conservative, we would still have about $8 million available for projects that are still in the pipeline that we've been working on. We have a number of grant applicants who we're still working with and holding over from this past cycle. Also, back to Judge Evans' point about the PPRI contract, you'll see that the amount budgeted under administrative for the PPRI contract database has gone from 107.54 to approximately 200,000 for that project of rebuilding and modernizing our data infrastructure. So all those things are accounted for. The recommended grants are in blue. You see the carry forward from previous budget year. So we're in very good financial shape. And I just wanted to show you this broader analysis so that you can have a better way to visualize our complete budget picture. Because when we look at individual fiscal years, it's hard to fully appreciate the good shape that we're in. So thank you, Megan. If there are any questions, I'm happy to discuss that.
Yeah, but I do have a question.
Sure.
We're showing 200,000 for the database and 93 for the research, the PPRI. After this year, 2022, does it go back to the 100,000? Is that a 1-year increase or is it multiple?
So we would anticipate that to be at least through the biennium. The part of the proposal involves PPRI is going to be bringing on a new programmer to work with us to implement this project. So I don't think that would be the case, at least through the biennium. The research budget, which is the 93,000 figure below, is entirely separate from the data infrastructure project. We typically contract with PPRI to do program evaluations, grant project evaluations, and other types of research. And that certainly could, change depending on what the commission wants to do.
So we're talking about approximately 400,000 to redo the website. If it's going to be for 2 years, is that right?
Jeff, I would defer to you.
That's accurate, Judge.
Okay, so 400. Okay, I'm just slow. I'm sorry. Trying to understand.
No, it's a good questions.
Yeah, we've one thing we've learned in the process of evaluating the data vendors out there is that we've been fortunate to have such a bargain with PPRI for the last 20 years, and I think we'll have a bargain with the modernization project as well.
Judge Keller, if you don't mind me saying real quick, I just want to praise Edwin and his team publicly for this. We faced uncertain economic times, uncertain revenues, an uncertain legislative session, and a public health crisis. And because of Edwin and his team, Sharon and Doriana and everyone else there, we really have weathered this pretty darn well. So I just want to say thanks to Edwin. We kept a lot of powder dry because of Edwin. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you all. I appreciate that. So anyway, I just wanted to, again, give you a broader perspective on our budget situation because you will be considering the recommended grants from the Grants and Reporting Committee shortly. But at this time, I would direct you to page. Yes.
I think Judge Covey has a question. I see her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Covey,
Thank you.
it's me. Thank
right.
you. Could you put the numbers back up if you would for just a second? So I'm assuming that because we probably all have seen our budgets impacted by COVID in various ways. And if you could put that last one up, that'd be great. Yeah, thank you. So basically, we saved money in 20 because some things weren't spent because we shut things down, I would assume. Is that right? And then also on the revenue side, we brought in less because the state stuff is set, but any fees from courts and stuff like that might have been diminished some. Could you speak to that just a little bit?
Sure. So I guess the page that's on the screen here that I was just discussing is really kind of sets aside or brackets the issue of revenue that's flowing into the Fair Defense account. That's on the previous sheet, which is on page, the revenue analysis is really on page 11, and that kind of shows you how much money is flowing into the Fair Defense account. But what we're looking at here is just our budget vis-a-vis our spending authority from the legislature. So we know that because the state has set aside, independently of our decisions, there are substantial funds in the fair defense account that were not appropriated to us. We were not given spending authority. And so that's provided a cushion to absorb the kind of reduction in inflows to the fair defense account. So that's reflected on the previous page. What this page is really showing is that we've got a specific amount of spending authority out of the fair defense account from the legislature. We've kept some funds in reserve, knowing that we faced some uncertain times and wanted to be in solid position to cover our continuing obligations. And so this is really, this part of the analysis is really just showing spending authority versus our budget.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure. Any other questions about that? I think we can go back to our meeting book on page 14 if there are no further questions about that. Just a quick update on the special conditions for the formula grant. So there are certain restrictions or requirements rather of the formula grant program in order for counties to receive their funds. So we have a handful of counties that are we're still holding their formula grant payments until they resolve these issues. This is quite a short list in context of previous years. We're doing well, and we're still working with all these counties and fully expect to resolve the outstanding issues. But just wanted to give you a quick update that there are a handful of counties out there. One of those counties is quite large. Harris County, their formula grant payments have been on hold because of a issue related to their misdemeanor plan requirement. And we do have a proposal given where we stand with that. And Wesley, would you like to address that?
Sure, thanks everyone. So Harris County, the special condition that's pending is related to the county courts of law, which are using a term assignment system still, which is effectively a contract system, but it doesn't follow our contract defender rules. And they're well on their way to changing that system, but it hasn't happened yet. They're implementing right now a managed assigned counsel system based on a grant that TIDC awarded them for this year. They've hired staff and they're getting lined up to begin accepting cases. Once that system is implemented, their contract system will go away entirely. But since that hasn't happened, we haven't cleared the special condition. But given their good faith efforts in doing that, staff would recommend that the board waive that requirement as to Harris County's criminal courts of law and release the special condition now for the FY. This is just for this year's formula grant, FY21. And there is a draft motion that would do that if the board chose to.
Yeah, there's a draft motion. Is there a motion to waive the indigent defense plan requirements for Harris County for the 2021 formula grant? And does anybody want to be shown not participating in that motion? I think Judge Maderi moved to waive the, is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, any discussion?
I do have one question. Is there a drop dead date that we're sure they're going to have their new system in place? It won't drag on for another year?
Yeah, that's a good question, Judge. I had the same question. I talked to the director of that managed assigned counsel system in Harris. Right now, the plan is that it'll launch in July. They said, basically at the very least by the end of the summer, they should be taking cases.
Okay, so they have hired the managed assigned counsel director.
That's correct. They hired a man named Kenneth Harden, and he staffed up that office. They have a case management system on board, Legal Server, which I think is the same one, Alex, that Bunnan's office uses. So they're just about at the point where they can start taking cases. They're aiming for July, but Judge Evans, to your point, the drop dead really would be the end of the summer.
If it's not implemented, then what happens?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we have no indication that it wouldn't be implemented. If it doesn't, then we would have to have some serious discussions, I think, with the MAC director and try to figure out how to implement it. Get it in place quickly, or discuss. I think maybe at that point even ending the grant. But I don't think we're anywhere near that. I think they all indications are that they'll be able to implement this.
Yeah, and Jeff, maybe what we do, and I don't know if this is appropriate, but can we maybe change the motion to say that it has to be done by a certain day and give them a drop dead deadline for like August so that make sure it's done?
Sure. I mean, I think that might be possible. And Wesley, tell me if there's any issue with doing that. But I would suggest them setting maybe September 1st or August 31st, something like that, as kind of a drop dead for them taking cases.
Are we having another meeting in August?
Yes.
We are.
Maybe we should put it off till then. Would that be a good idea?
Well, I think the motion, the issue is that right now, and Wesley, correct me if I'm wrong on this, my understanding is that all TIDC formula grant funding for Harris County, which is fairly sizable, is kind of hung up on this one bit. So all quarterly payments right now are kind of on pause, and have been for quite a few months. And this would essentially allow TIDC funding to start flowing again. So ultimately, of course, we defer to the board. But Wesley, is that an accurate description of what the situation is?
That's accurate. So that there hasn't been any formula grants paid to Harris County for this current fiscal year. You could waive it for the first 3 quarters, I suppose, and just bring them up to current payments, but revisit the issue in August because we won't have made the final payments for the 4th quarterly payment by then.
Do you think that's the best way to do it, Wesley?
That would certainly leave some powder dry, if you will, that we could withhold that last quarter payment if they didn't implement the program. I mean, under the motion as drafted, I think it would be waived for the full fiscal year. But
it takes the hammer away from the commission.
Yeah.
Right.
With that motion, we have no way to enforce.
Well, I think the commission could proceed several different ways. If you wanted to, you could allow disbursement of the first 2 quarterly payments or the first 3 quarterly payments, and that would still give us, as you said, Judge Evans, a hammer, the leverage to ensure that they finish the job that they've started.
Okay, well, there's a motion already that's been made to waive the
Can I
requirement.
ask you? Hey, Judge, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I just ask, how far along are they? Maybe we give them, I like the idea of giving them some, but not necessarily all. Is there a way to tell, are they halfway through? Are they 3/4 of the way through? And we can base our number of quarter payments that way.
That's a good question, Commissioner. I talked to their director earlier this week. I mean, my assessment is that they're 3/4 of the way through, if not more, probably a little bit more than that. So I think they're in pretty good shape. But I think to Judge Evans' point and Judge Mederi's point that, maybe it is good to release funding for the first few quarters, but not just take the stop away entirely. I think that might be a smart way to progress.
Any other questions?
Then maybe what we can do, since there is a motion already, maybe if you'll allow it, maybe I'll make a motion to amend the motion to pay the first 3 quarterly payments for Harris County for the formula grant, but hold off on the last quarter.
Okay, I don't know where we are procedurally, Jeff, or anybody. So do we need to vote on the amendment? Do we need a second on the amendment? I can't remember if there's a second on the first motion.
Edwin or Wesley, you remember? I think my recollection is basically we just need a second for Judge Mederi's amendment, and then there could be a vote. Is that accurate?
I think the person that seconded has to accept the amendment, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I second it again as amended.
Okay. Then there's an amended motion to waive the indigent defense plan requirement for Harris County as to the first 3 quarters of the year. Is there any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
I'm abstaining also.
Okay. And thank you for Judge Evans and Judge Mederi for bringing that up. And the motion carries.
Thank you. We'll definitely keep you posted. We're working very closely with them as they get this implemented. So we'll give you an update in August, and hopefully we'll be able to report that things are fully addressed. The next item on the agenda is found on page 15 of your meeting materials. So as you all know, when we do fiscal monitoring of counties, if we identify a problem with their IDER, in particular, if a county claimed more indigent defense spending than was actually made, we will typically bring that issue to you and recommend reducing their formula grant awards so that the formula grant award is calculated based on their actual corrected indigent defense expenditures that are eligible. So we have a slightly different circumstance with Dallas County regarding the 2021 formula grant for Dallas. Dallas County did its own review and internal audit and identified some mistakes in their IDER. So this did not come from our fiscal monitoring program, but to their credit, Dallas County identified an issue and came to us with the corrections. So their original formula grant was based on inaccurate spending figures, and they actually over-reported their indigent defense spending. So what our recommendation is to recalculate Dallas County's 2021 formula grant based on their corrected expenditures. And our estimate is that will reduce their award by about $25,000, which is only a few percentage points because it is a relatively, in the context, relatively small. And we have a motion for that staff recommendation if you'd like to move.
Is there a motion to recalculate Dallas County's FY 2021 formula grant based on corrected expenditures and adjust the award accordingly?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you all. So next we are ready to move on to the report of the Grants and Reporting Committee. As I mentioned, Judge Maderi convened the Grants and Reporting Committee meeting last Friday, June 11th. The meeting was conducted via Zoom to review the grant request for FY 2022. The committee consists of Judge Maderi as chair, Judge Keller and Chief Justice Raddick are the other members. And they reviewed the pending grant requests. They heard some testimony from representatives from Bexar County, Tom Green, and Denton counties. And there's a link here in the meeting materials to the full grant applications for anyone who'd like to review those in more detail. And the committee unanimously recommended and we'll get into these details subsequently, but just at a high level, the continued grant awards totaling $18,282,007 and several new improvement grants for several counties totaling just under $4.4 million. And we can get into those details next. So on page 17, you have the list of continuing grant award recommendations from the committee. These are continued multi-year grants, as well as our rural regional sustainability grants and a handful of continuing awards for the restricted mental health public defender grants that the legislature provided some restricted funds to support. And we do have a committee motion to approve the grants. I will note that there are a handful of grants on the continuing. Megan, if you could go back just a moment. If we have a handful of members who are officials in counties that are the subject of continuing grants. So our recommendation for handling that would be if you are in a county that, and this would impact Judge Maderi because Nueces County is on here, Judge Evans because the Kerr County Regional Program is on here, Mr. Bunnan and Chief Justice Raddick if you'd like, because Harris County is on here, and Medina County for Judge Torres. Those are the members who would want to recuse on specific items. So what we would suggest is for those of you who are impacted by that, if you would just indicate that when you vote, we can proceed that way. I hope that makes sense. Wesley, did I get that right?
And Edwin, I would add, this is Commissioner Covey, I would add my recusal on the Williamson transformation grant.
Thank you, Judge Commissioner Covey. I apologize that I missed you on that list.
Okay, Edwin. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, so if you are in support of the approval of the continuing grant slate, when you vote, please just indicate if you are recusing on a particular county. And we do have motions. So I think in this one, Judge, we might want to do a bit of a roll call because some members will be recusing in a limited way in their vote.
Okay. I'm not sure how we do that, but there's a committee motion to award the new FY22 continuing grant awards according to the chart. It's a committee motion, so no second is necessary. Any questions or discussion? Okay, Edwin, how do you want to do this? Get a vote on the whole thing?
I think we should just go down the roll and take votes, and those members who need to recuse in a particular matter can indicate that when they vote.
Okay, all in favor? And going down the roll would mean,
So, Megan, can you call the roll again regarding this particular motion? Or at least for the members present?
Okay, can you remind me what motion we're working on right now for what county?
we're
This is,
working on all of them.
Okay,
Yeah, we're gonna vote on all of them at once. And I can go down through the members. I'm not recusing, so Mr. Alex Bunnan,
I vote aye, recusing on the 2 Harris County items.
the Honorable Valerie Covey,
I'm aye and recusing on the Williamson County item.
the Honorable Brandon Creighton, he's not here. The Honorable Richard Evans,
I vote aye and I abstain from voting on the Kerr County grant.
Mr. Gonzalo Rios, okay,
Oh, I'm sorry, I vote aye.
okay, thank you. The Honorable Nathan Hecht,
Aye on all of it.
the Honorable Missy Maderi,
I vote aye, except I'm going to abstain from the Nueces County.
the Honorable Nicole Collier is not here. The Honorable Reggie Smith,
not here.
okay. The Honorable Sherry Raddick. Judge Raddick,
sorry, I was on mute. I vote aye on all of it except for abstaining on the Harris County issue.
the Honorable Vivian Torres,
I vote aye on all of it except abstain as to the Kern.
and I think that's everybody here. So,
And there is, Judge Torres, there is a Medina County item as well.
Oh.
Where is that?
It's the Medina County item is,
I see it. And the Indigent Defense Coordinator.
yes. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you. I abstain as to that as well.
okay, motion carries. Thank you, Edwin.
Thank you. Thank you. I apologize that that was a little more complicated, and I can promise you that when we prepare the continuing grant slate next time, we'll make that smoother. I appreciate your patience in sorting through that with the recusals. Thank you.
Good work. Thank you.
Okay, so on page 18 of your materials, we just have an overall summary of the new grant award requests that we've received for the 2022 cycle. The new improvement grant applications total 8.2 million. And the committee has recommended, the Grants and Reporting Committee has recommended just under 4.4 million in new awards. And we will take these one by one. So the first one for consideration will be on page 19 of the materials. And this is a request from Bexar County for a managed assigned counsel office. And Jeff, do you want to lay this out for us?
Yeah, thank you, Edwin. So I am very excited about this one. This is several years in the making. This follows a study that TIDC helped fund from Texas A&M's Public Policy Research Institute. They found a lot of issues with Bexar County's indigent defense system. Their primary recommendation was to create a managed assigned counsel system. It also follows a TIDC planning study for a managed assigned counsel system. This MAC, or managed assigned counsel system, would cover felonies, misdemeanors, and juvenile cases. And it has support from the judges and felony courts, misdemeanor courts, and juvenile courts, a unanimous vote from the Commissioner's Court, and support from the private bar, both the Criminal Defense Bar and the San Antonio Bar Association. The one note I would add about this, the original staffing model that TIDC created, we had more staff and it was a little bit pricier, but we thought a little bit more rigorous. We cut that down considerably. So this is a lot smaller of a MAC than I think anybody had originally planned. But we think it's sufficient enough, large enough to really kind of get this thing off the ground and going. The one recommendation we've had for the county is that given that we've cut this down considerably, a couple of years from now, we might want to reconsider this and just make sure that it's properly staffed. So I think that's it. Judge, there is a committee motion, and then I'm happy to take any questions.
Is there a motion, committee motion? There is committee motion, doesn't require a second. Any discussion? The committee motion is to award a new FY22 improvement grant of $1,490,310 to Bexar County for managed assigned counsel program. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Alva. The next item is on page 20 of your meeting book, and that's the grant request from Tom Green County. This is for a 7-county rural regional public defender program titled the Concho Valley Regional RPDO. And Scott is going to lay that out for us.
I will abstain from the vote in this case.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Rios. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Edwin. This grant has come in from Tom Green County to establish a 7-county rural regional public defender office that will include not only Tom Green, but Koch, Concho, Irion, Runnels, Schleicher, and Sterling counties. We have been working with folks from Tom Green since last December. They used our modeling to establish the staffing levels and the budget for this office. It's been great working with the county. We think they did a great job. The office would have 23 staff, including 14 attorneys. It would cover misdemeanors, felonies, juveniles, appeals. One of the main reasons why they came to us was, I think many of you are familiar with the problem of there not being enough attorneys in many rural parts of the state. And so they are facing this same problem in and around Tom Green County. There were a couple of issues that I wanted to bring to your attention that I thought you should be aware of. One of the items is the build out space. Rather than renting office space, the county would like TIDC to fund just over $388,000 of an estimated $600,000 in costs to build out the office. We, the staff, believe that this is warranted and in the long term would actually be more cost effective. The second item that I wanted to bring to your attention is that the TIDC's policy right now is for sustainability grant funding is for regional offices where all counties are under 100,000 population. In this case, Tom Green is slightly over that population amount. They're at approximately 119,000 population right now. However, the overall combined population of the region is just it's approaching 142,000 people. So it's actually overall a smaller region than, say, the Hill Country region. So in terms of the recommendation and what you would be voting on today, we would recommend that you approve the grant for $2,276,676 and also direct TIDC staff to propose revisions to the sustainability grant policy so that we still focus on rural needs while encouraging anchor counties to host regional programs. And so with that, I don't know if Jeff or Edwin, you had anything to add to that. I believe I saw some Tom Green folks here as well.
We do have a few folks from the county in case any members have questions or would like to speak to those representatives from the county.
Are there any questions?
I do have one question. If we pay the $388,000 to do the build out, then does that do away with the rent totally, or do we?
Yes. Yes. So Judge Evans, if you could scoot up on the page, Megan, please. So you'll see that the first year budget for the project is just under 2.3 million, but then the second year budget goes way down to 1.5 million basically, and that's kind of where we expect, and that's the total program cost, I'm looking at the grant amount. The total budget goes from 2.9 million to about 2.2 million, and that's because the funding for the office space is all kind of front loaded and then goes away entirely.
Okay. So we pay to build out and then don't pay rent.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And Judge Evans, it's a good question. I would add real quick. I mean, we've done this before. I think we've done it, Edwin, correct me if I'm wrong, I think 5 or 6 times, but we don't do it in every grant. So we wanted to flag it for y'all anyway, just to make sure it's on your radar.
We do believe that it's definitely going to save both commission grant funds and the county money in the long run to follow this approach. And we're very pleased that Tom Green has built such strong consensus with such a large number of their neighbors. This will be the largest multi-county regional that we've had.
Any other questions? Okay, is there a committee motion to award new FY22 improvement grants of $2,276,676 to Tom Green County to establish the Concho Valley Regional Public Defender Office and to direct staff to propose revisions to the sustainability grant policy to focus on rural needs while encouraging anchor counties to host regional programs. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. And I just want to say that when we get these proposals, a lot of work has gone into it, and thanks Scott and Edwin and whoever else worked on this, because it's like magic. All the work's done, and we just have to look at it and say yes, but a lot of work went into it, and it's an important office, so thank you.
Judge Keller, you beat me to the punch.
Okay.
Great job, guys and ladies.
Thanks, Judge and Justice, and a lot of credit goes to Tom Green and their auditor and the judges and commissioners. They've all worked long and hard on this, and they did a great job.
Well, thank you all.
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think if we're finished with, so we did get a vote on that. We're ready to go to page 21 of your meeting materials, and the next grant is from Cameron County.
So Edwin, I'm sorry, can I jump in real quick? And I'm not sure, point of order here. Since I am the 5th region judge and Cameron County is in my 5th region, should I abstain from this? Do I have a conflict?
I would defer to our counsel, Wesley. Do you want to address that?
I don't think you have to, Judge, but it is within our jurisdiction, and our ethics policy might view that. I think it's intended to be like single counties, but I think you have abstained, and I think it'd be perfectly fine for you to do so in this case.
Does that cause any consternation in regards to my committee vote beforehand? Would that be a problem?
I don't think so, Judge. It was unanimous, so we had enough votes there too if you had needed to recuse. So I think we're okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Then you know what, in the abundance of caution, I'm going to abstain from voting on the Cameron County one.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate that. The request from Cameron County is for a juvenile public defender mental health division expansion. So the current juvenile public defender in Cameron County is very different from what we would typically see in public defender offices around the country, particularly ones that we have helped to develop since the passage of the Fair Defense Act. Their juvenile PD actually predates the Fair Defense Act, but it's really not a public defender office so much as a couple of attorneys who are employed by the juvenile courts to represent those juveniles. What this grant does in part is it develops new resources that are focused specifically on juveniles with mental health challenges, and there are many, many more of those kids coming into the system. So it would provide specialized representation by adding an attorney, a mental health social worker, and an administrative staff support. The program currently has no paralegal or administrative staff support. It's just the 2 attorneys. And in fact, one of those 2 existing attorney slots has been vacant. So right now, the Cameron County juvenile public defender is down to one person, one lone attorney trying to hold down the fort. It's very difficult for them to get, because the juvenile courts are not located in the same place as the adult courts. It's actually in a different town in the county. They have a lot of challenges getting private counsel to cover some of the overflow cases. So we think that this is a really important solution. More importantly, in addition to adding those mental health resources, the program will really take this nascent public defender and really develop it into a public defender office as we would recognize it and recommend it to be structured. Currently, it doesn't have any kind of oversight board. The new program will have an oversight board. It will get some independence so that the attorneys are not employed directly by the judges. It will have administrative support that any public defender office needs to be effective. And so a lot of our external reviewers who are very familiar with these pre-Fair Defense Act programs were very excited that this is an opportunity to bring this this old program, kind of legacy program, up to snuff by modern standards. So we have a lot of strong support from our external committee and from the staff, and we have a committee motion to award $200,800 to fund the juvenile public defender mental health expansion. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, but it says the mental health expansion to the program is actually established in the program period and adding a mental health part to it, isn't it? Did I miss that?
I guess the reason that we've phrased it as that is there is a juvenile public defender office in Cameron County currently. It's just a very minimal one. It consists of 2 lawyers. And so what we're doing is we're adding a new kind of team to the existing program that consists of the mental health. It's an expansion of the public defender to add a mental health unit or team, if you will. And that's kind of why we've titled it that way. The other thing I'd point out for y'all is we didn't really touch on this in the kind of abbreviated report on the legislative appropriation that just concluded. But $5 million of the money that the legislature has funded, just like in the current biennium, they have specifically earmarked for mental health defense. And so this program would help to use those restricted funds that the legislature has provided.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, but but they didn't have mental health before we're adding it.
That's right.
And expanding the office. Okay, I got
it. It's a bit of ambiguity there. I apologize for that, but you're right, Judge.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Well, since Judge Maderi is abstaining, I'll proceed. There's a committee motion to award FY22 improvement grant of $200,800 to Cameron County to fund the juvenile public defender mental health expansion. No second is needed. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. And let me say now, Judge Maderi, I apologize. I've been jumping in when you're supposed to present the committee motion. So you do it from here on out, and I blame it on Zoom. And let's continue.
Thank you all. Page 22 is our next item, and it's a grant request from Denton County. And this is essentially a team of indigent defense coordinators to help a large urban county that has a lot of complexities in the front end processes for people requesting and getting assigned to counsel. The county is one of the top 10, I believe, by population, and Denton County has a lot of municipalities that do magistration. They have a lot of different booking facilities and local police departments. So there's a lot of additional complexities to the process of gathering requests for counsel, vetting those to determine eligibility. Right now, those requests go to something like 16, a large number of different judges. It's very decentralized. So what this project would do would be to give the county an indigent defense coordinator team that would coordinate and organize around all that interjurisdictional complexity to ensure that applications for counsel are promptly evaluated for eligibility and that counsel is appointed more quickly. There's a lot of challenges related to transmission of requests for counsel, and frankly, things fall through the cracks without coordination. So our committee felt this was a very good step forward for this county to organize and streamline what is right now a very disorganized system with a lot of gaps. And so we do have a committee motion. The request is for $223,791. And we did, the grant application did request $5,000 in indirect funds. The staff recommendation is to reallocate that request in the budget to a travel and training portion of the budget to allow the county to make some trips to not only to the TIDC Indigent Defense Workshop when we present our next one of those, but also to visit neighboring counties that have successfully grappled with similar challenges. So there's a slight recommended tweak in the budget from staff in this motion. Happy to answer questions. We also have Judge Ramsey, who's a magistrate judge from Denton County here if members have questions. I could answer those, or Judge Ramsey is here as well.
Okay, Judge Maderi, I think, tell me if I'm wrong. Are you supposed to present the committee motion to the commission?
You got me, Judge Keller. I never
Yeah,
know.
I don't know.
That would be appreciated, Judge Maderi, if you're willing to present the committee motion as chair of GNR.
Sure, no problem. All right, so 9, committee motion to award new FY22 improvement grant of $223,791 to Denton County for the integrated court appointed attorney and compliance office, and reallocate the $5,000 indirect expense budget to the travel and training budget.
Okay, that's a committee motion. No second is necessary. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. So next item is page 23. We're getting close to the end here. Thank you all for your patience. So quite a list. Page 23 is a request from El Paso County for a Padilla immigration they're calling it a Padilla Immigration Counseling and Advice Program. This is basically a Padilla compliance project for the El Paso County Public Defender's Office. They currently do not have a dedicated attorney that has expertise in providing advisals to defendants regarding the immigration-related collateral consequences of a plea as required under Padilla. So this would rectify that. As you all know, El Paso is a large county, a large border county. There are a lot of issues that arise related to the requirements under Padilla. And so we believe that in the committee, both our external review committee, the staff, and the grants reporting committee all believe that this would be an important addition to the program to help them and comply with the requirements of Padilla. We do have a committee motion.
All right, you want me to make this one as well then?
If you would, Judge.
Sure. Committee motion to award new FY22 improvement grant of $175,963 to El Paso County to fund the Padilla Immigration Counseling and Advice Program.
No second is needed. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all. Next, I'd ask you to turn to page 24 of your meeting materials, and this is the request we received from Webb County. It's a very small request. I'll be quick about it, but Webb County reached out to us, and they had recently extended their magistration to cover weekends. So defendants are getting magistrated 7 days a week in Webb County, and they have indigent defense coordinators during the week, but they did not have anybody to cover the weekends. And so there were some delays in getting, vetting, and processing those requests for counsel that were coming in. The county had is facing, like many local jurisdictions, the county's facing a lot of budget pressures related to COVID and just generally. And so it was difficult for them to get approval to move forward to extend their indigent defense coverage to the weekend. So they requested some grant assistance to extend indigent defense coordinator coverage to weekends to make sure that those requests for counsel were processed quickly. I want to note that we typically have a minimum award of $50,000 that's referenced in the request for applications document. I recommended to the county that they could still apply and request that you all waive that minimum to give them the help that they need to get this covered. And the stakeholders in Webb County told me that they were very confident that with a little bit of grant help, the budget authorities would be on board to go ahead and fill this gap in important duties for processing requests for counsel. And we do have a committee motion.
I'm sorry, it's the Webb
Number
County.
11.
Okay, thank you. Committee motion to award new FY22 improvement grant of $11,561 to Webb County to fund a weekend indigent defense coordinator and waive the $50,000 minimum grant award requirement.
No second is necessary. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. I just want to thank Edwin for, number one, being flexible about the $50,000, because this really is more work for the staff, and he's willing to do it because he thinks it's a good idea. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it will be helpful to the county and help them address a need. Getting close to the end. The next item is on page 25. It's the grant request from Wichita County. And Jeff, did you want to lay this one out?
Sure, thank you, Edwin. So this is Wichita. This is a very small grant, $6,500. This is for equipment for discovery, investigation, and trial. That equipment includes a projector, laptops, burner, and camera. This is the staff was originally a little bit torn about this one because it's kind of bordering on more of a routine technology investment. Ultimately, our staff recommendation to the GNR committee was that it be funded, and the GNR committee agreed. And so there is a committee motion on this. The one note I would add is that we on the staff side, we may present to you next year a revised RFA that maybe excludes kind of smaller kind of technology equipment investments. So, but with that, there is a committee motion, Judge.
Judge Banderi, that's number 12 on the motion sheet.
Right, comes right after 11. I should know that, right? Committee motion to award a new FY22 improvement grant of $6,500 to Wichita County to fund a public defender technology improvements.
The second is necessary. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. I think at this point we are through with, I don't know if we're through or not, but I'll just take this opportunity to thank the External Review Committee for all their work on this, because it would truly be so hard for us to do without their help. And we always appreciate what they do. Okay, what's next?
So Judge, next I direct you back to page 18 in the meeting materials to just touch on a few grants that are not being recommended for funding at this time, but that we want to just provide a brief update about. So page 18 is the summary of all the requests that we received. And Jeff, I believe you were going to just touch on those items that are not the subject of a motion today.
Sure, thank you, Edwin. I'll try to be brief on this. Scurry County, they've identified a real problem. They have a shortage of attorneys, like many of our rural counties do. We don't think that they've identified yet a good solution. Their proposal was named a public defender office. It was really a contract defender system. Unfortunately, did not really comply with the contract defender rules. It did not meet our grant requirements either. But the staff is going to continue to work with Scurry County because, again, they really identified a serious problem. But we think we just need to work a little bit more closely with them to find a better solution. Potter County and Hayes County are in similar situations. Both are considering building a public defender office. Both applied for funding for a public defender office, and both are substantially modifying their applications. For Potter County, they originally were going to go with a nonprofit public defender, and they're now considering a county-driven public defender office. So we're going to continue to work with them. For Hayes County's part, they're still looking at a nonprofit public defender, but they're talking about adjusting the scope of that public defender office. So hopefully one or both we might be able to bring to you at the August meeting, and we're going to continue to work with those counties. And I'm happy to take your questions about Scurry or Hayes or Potter.
Okay, what next?
The last item in the grants section is just a housekeeping matter on page 26 of your meeting book. And this is a request from Harris County regarding an extension of the grant term. The Managed Assigned Counsel program, which we funded for, you all funded for Harris County, that is currently being implemented. They've staffed up and they're about to start assigning cases in the very near future. However, there were a number of delays related to the staffing up the program. A lot of it was related to COVID as well as some other challenges. So the request is to just extend the term of the grant. There's no cost or financial impact at all. Just to extend the term of the grant through November 30th of 2021 in order to give them a full 12 months to use the funds that were previously awarded. And we do have a motion for it.
And that's not a committee motion. So is there a motion to extend the term of Harris County grant award through November 30th, 2021?
So moved.
Is there a second? Anybody want a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
I think I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
I abstain.
So Chief Justice Raddick and Alex Moon are going to abstain. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all. I want to thank Judge Maderi for chairing the Grants and Reporting Committee and for all your patience and listening to the presentations today and your support of these programs. We feel really good about it. It's been a busy grant cycle, and we're still in the middle of it. As Jess said, we're continuing to work with a number of counties that have projects in the pipeline, and we'll keep you posted and be back in August with an update. But that concludes our GNR section of the agenda, and I believe we are next moving to fiscal monitoring.
Okay, before we move on, I want to thank.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judge. Go ahead.
I want to thank Judge Maderi too, and Chief Justice Raddick for her work on the Grants and Reporting Committee. Thanks for making this go smoothly in the big meeting. Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm sorry about that, Judge. I was going to suggest, if it's okay with you, that maybe we hop back to the improvement team update that we had skipped earlier.
Let's do.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. Scott and Kathleen, I think we'll take that.
Thank you, Jeff. So yeah, just real quick, wanted to let y'all know what the improvement team has been up to. We did a planning study for Bexar County on that managed assigned counsel program that y'all just approved. So we, laid out what kind of staff they would need for that, and we had a number of meetings with Bexar County judges and folks from the county judge, commissioner's court, et cetera, on that planning study. Provided technical assistance to some of the new public defender offices we've established, like in Galveston. The Harris County MAC had a number of meetings with them and providing their director with assistance. And Tom Green, which I'll also just approve, we had a number of meetings with Tom Green. Megan, if you can scroll down a little bit, I wanted to highlight this investigator project. We secured a Justice for All technical assistance grant from the Department of Justice's Bureau of Justice Assistance. We're going to be working with the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, Association of Prosecuting Attorneys, National Center for State Courts, and the Research Triangle Institute. They are going to be looking at the use of investigators in Texas by assigned counsel as well as public defender offices, try to make a determination if investigators are being used adequately throughout the state, and make some recommendations on how investigator usage might be improved. And we're anticipating that project will last about a year. And Kathleen, do you want to talk a bit about the future indigent defense leaders and the juvenile training immersion program?
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott. So just to kind of go over what's happening in these programs, it's been a really exciting time as the world begins to open back up and people are getting more active. With FIDL in particular, we have been hosting our monthly roundtables. That's where we bring all of the group participants together. And we've recently been engaging in some small group work and really making sure that folks stay active. We're actually going to have a meetup next week at the Rusty Duncan Criminal Defense Conference in San Antonio. So it'll be a very exciting time, get to see people. And for the second class, they've never been able to meet in person. So this will be the first time that they get to put names with faces in a real life setting. So that's really cool. As far as the juvenile training and immersion program, I'm really pleased to report that we successfully completed the 3.5-day Train the Trainer course. With this program, again, we're partnering with the Texas Criminal Defense Lawyers Association and the National Juvenile Defender Center. And despite having to pivot to virtual for the Train the Trainers program, we had incredible support from TCDLA. It went off really without a hitch. And I just wanted to bring to you two of the positive reviews. One participant said, "Thank you for bringing this program to Texas. I have learned more in 4 days at this training than a year's worth of usual CLEs. I am a better teacher and advocate for children I serve because of it. I cannot wait to start teaching others." And then thank you, all capital letters. And another review said this training was hard, fun, engaging, and professionally fulfilling. The trainers, content, and method of training were superb. I will recommend this training to anyone who defends children. So in the second phase of the project that we're moving to now, these 16 trainers that we've had go through this first part of the course will be taking the national curriculum from JTIP. They will be making it Texas specific, and then we'll be going out into communities and we'll be actually conducting trainings for line defenders throughout the state. So at our next board meeting, I hope to be able to report on the success we've had in actually bringing this training out into the communities. And Scott, I think that covers my update.
Thanks, Kathleen. Yep, I think that's about it for us.
Okay, thanks, Kathleen. That's very exciting. What's next?
I can jump in. Fiscal monitoring. If y'all want to turn to page 27 in the meeting notebook, I've summarized all the activities for the year from pages 27 to page 30. Just to highlight the activities since the March meeting. I've begun 2 new desk reviews, and those are on Bastrop and Taylor counties. I've issued 4 final reports. Those are on Clayburgh, Navarro, San Jacinto, and Ellis counties. I participated in the group presentation of findings for the Harris County follow-up review. Do have the initial fiscal report for Montgomery County ready to be issued, but this was a joint review with the policy team. So I think we're going to do another group presentation on the findings. This presentation is going to be conducted on Monday, the 28th. And so the report will be issued at that time. In addition to the reviews, Dylan Minch of the Children's Commission and I worked together and prepared a PowerPoint, which we presented virtually to approximately 250 county auditors at their annual auditors conference. The topic of the presentation was Introduction to the new CPS reporting requirement on the TIDC Indigent Defense Expenditure Report. I believe it was pretty successful. We've had a lot of response from the auditors for that conference. Other activities include reviewing the comprehensive annual financial reports, CAFRs, and single audits for 10 counties. And that concludes my report. I'll be happy to take any questions or try to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I think we're going back to policies and standards. Is that next, Jeff?
I think that's right, Judge.
Okay, Alex.
Well, it's me, but I think it's all staff. Joel, are you first?
That's correct, Mr. Bunnan. On page 31 of the meeting notebook, you'll see a summary of our indigent defense plan and review process. So over the past year and several months, staff have reviewed indigent defense plans to make sure they meet all of our statutory and administrative requirements. As of this morning, all but one plan had met these requirements, and the one that was remaining is the Harris County Court's misdemeanor plan. And as you heard earlier, they're moving from a contract defender system to a managed assigned counsel program. And once they do that, that will meet the requirements. So that concludes that section. If we could turn to the next page, page 32. This is a summary of recent policy monitoring activity. Since the last board meeting, we've issued 1 policy monitoring report to Harris County. This report was a little different. We're now doing webinars for large reviews. In the past, we'd issue a report, but we weren't really confident that all of the officials had necessarily read the report. And this helps us, I think, communicate our message as to what our report is saying and what we would like to do. And we're able to take some questions from the counties. So going forward, we're going to try to do webinars with our large reviews. And we have one coming up in Montgomery County. We'll do that on Monday, June 28th. Since COVID has come about, we've tried to do all of our reviews virtually. The only two counties in which we were able to do everything virtually were Harris and Montgomery counties. The other counties, we have to do some on-site work. And that's what we're in process of doing. So over this summer, we're going to try to close out the remaining visits. There may still be a little bit left over after the summer, but most of these reviews require a little bit of on-site work, and then we can issue the report. And with that said, are there any questions? And if not, we can, I guess, turn it over to Lindsay, who will talk about complaints.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joel. Now turning to a summary of recent complaints. We received 51 new complaints from 45 complainants since the March 4th board meeting. 50 of those complaints have been resolved and closed. A quarter of complaints were forwarded on to local officials per our complaint policy. 20% of the complaints were referred to the state, of complainants were referred to the state bar. 8 complainants were referred to Innocence Projects, and 30 complainants were referred to either the Texas Jail Project, the Texas Fair Defense Project, or other outside entities. The 3 complaints listed as relevant complaints were out of Hayes County, Gregg County, and Ector County, and they touched on more potentially systemic allegations involving wrongful denial of the appointment of counsel, failure to consider ability to pay before ordering the payment of attorney's fees, and appointed counsel not communicating with clients or working on cases. All of these complaints were forwarded on to local officials. Additional relevant referrals were made to complainants, and allegations related to any policy monitoring topics have been noted for future reviews. That concludes my report.
This seems like more complaints than usual. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct, Judge Keller. I will say that 12 of those complaints came through our website, through our Contact Us email box, and had been received just before this past quarter. But we did receive 39 complaints this quarter, and typically we're around 25 complaints.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Judge Keller.
I have a question. That's pretty phenomenal, those amount of complaints. And sounds like they have merits just from the quick report that we got. That sounds like something that is very valuable to find out about those. Is there a way to, and I'm also impressed that these people were able to figure out where to go to complain. So I wonder if there's a way to make it more well known. Sounds like it, you know, we instituted this as we were hesitant about it. But
Well,
now
let
it
me-
sounds like it's been a good idea.
Let me see if I'm understanding this correctly, Lindsay or Jeff. Most of the complaints we got should not have been directed to us. Only 3 were really things that we would look into. Is that right?
Well, Judge Keller, I would say a number of these referrals that are made, the vast majority of complaints, I would say, maybe should have been directed to other entities. There may have been some additional complaints. These 3 were the most likely to have potential systemic allegations, but there may have been some complaints that were still within our scope. But a good number of them are passed on. However, sometimes there is information in them that's relevant to our duties as well.
Okay, well, we do want to get the complaints, and we don't want to make it too hard for people to let us know what's going on. But on the other hand, we don't want to get so many complaints that really aren't properly addressed to us
Right.
that it burdens staff. So I don't know, maybe staff and Jeff could look at some ways to address both of those issues and
Sure.
satisfy Chief Justice Radick we're getting the complaints that we need to get. Y'all want to look into that? Is that a good idea?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and to provide some background information on it for Chief Justice Radick and everyone else, we actually, it's not really set in statute that we receive complaints and process complaints. We just started receiving them and had to figure out how to deal with them. We also, because of the kind of floodgates issue, we don't really advertise our kind of complaint receiving capacity, I guess. And because we don't really have the staff to deal with it. On the other hand, I think you're spot on, Judge Reddick, that we do receive ones that really have merit, and we have to figure out how to deal with those and what do we do. So I think maybe that is something that if you all want to direct us to do that, we're happy to take a harder look at this on the staff side and see how we can maybe better process this, or do we need additional staff to do this, or what does a better process look like?
Well, if I remember correctly, there was a lot of controversy about even starting this program, but it sounds like some of this has merit, even if it doesn't ultimately belong to us. I'm sorry that there's not enough staff, and isn't that the eternal problem? But
yeah,
I think it makes sense to look at it harder.
Yes. How about if we see what happens over the next 3 months, see whether the number of complaints coming in goes up, goes down, whether the ones that are within our scope remain steady, and get a little more information on it. In the meantime, the staff can be thinking about ways to address Chief Justice Raddick's concerns. Do you want to do that?
That sounds good, I think, for the staff side, Judge. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
If I might make a comment, possibly our new website would be a perfect place to add links to for people to access the state bar or whatever, to see if you have a problem, that you could actually use the website and direct them to the appropriate place ahead of getting the complaint. Just an idea.
You know, I can't remember if what we've done relates to this or not, but there is a place on our website. Is this the complaints where it says, if this is your question, go here. If you have XYZ, go here. Is that the complaints? Do we already have that?
That's exactly right, Judge. Lindsay did a really good job on this when we redid the website. There's a page there that does exactly, Judge Evans, what you, and we may have stolen this idea from you, Judge Evans, at some point, but it does exactly what you're talking about, that it directs folks to different resources. And essentially, I mean, that's, I think the way we've approached it really has been kind of twofold. Part of it is TIDC serving as a hub, sending people to the right resources. And part of it is where we do have something that's substantive, something of merit that could trigger additional monitoring on TIDC's part. We've taken that into consideration.
Okay. Just a small idea.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. Thank you. Jeff, are we back to you? Or does Alex have anything else?
Nothing else.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you.
Jeff, next meeting?
Yes, I think so. I think that's it as far, let me just double check that we didn't skip anything. I think we're in good shape. The next meeting, we're going to reach out with a doodle poll, but we're looking at August, I think probably the third week in August. So we'll send a doodle poll out to everyone and make sure that those dates work. Judge, one thing that we've been debating, and it would be helpful, we could either talk about it now or we can follow up offline, but to get a sense from the members of whether you prefer to meet in person or virtually in August. And I, Judge, as the chair, of course, I defer to you on whether we can just follow up offline if that's the easiest way to do it.
Well, I was wondering the same thing. If it's going to be the third week in August, I would prefer remote. And that may be true for other people because there's people still going on vacation in August and will be able to meet remotely when they couldn't meet in person. Maybe we should just start in-person meetings with the new year. What do y'all think? Does anybody think
in the fall, maybe?
In the new fiscal year, yeah.
Right.
Does that sound okay with everybody?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Jeff, that's what we'll do.
And Judge, I think that's all we have on our end, unless there are any questions or anything anybody wants us to address.
Is there any new business?
Oh.
Any public comment? Well, thank you all for coming and participating, and thank you staff for all the work you did to make this go smoothly. We will see you